welcome to the Come Together podcast. I'm Matta and I'm here with John, Liv, Lisa, Colin and Georgia, and we're just going to have a little discussion around, we've just been talking then off camera about like the common denominator that brings us into recovery, but often there's lots of differences within our own stories, and often the difference is the substance that we've taken. So we've just been having a conversation about it then, and we decided to put the camera on and just see how we went with it. So is anyone who wants to kick us off? John, are you alright if we hand it over to you? So what was it that brought you into recovery, and what was the substance that kind of brought you to your knees?
Okay, alcohol, and it got out of hand. I thought, I started out as a social drinker, then the social drinking became, I was drinking heavily socially, and then one day I woke up and I was depressed, and I wondered how I was going to get through the day, so I picked up a bottle of gin and then started to drink that, and that was good that day, and then the next day I did the same, and then a year, 2 years down the line, everyone was telling me I had a problem. I knew I had a problem, and then I needed to seek help, which I did. And like you've just been saying there, you're in a room with a group of people, but not everyone has the same addiction as I had. I then began to believe that these people are not like me, I'm just an alcoholic and they're using drugs. But after a while, and I continued with the group sessions, and after a while I realised that all the problems and the issues I was having, they were having the same. That just that the thing that took them to addiction was different, but all their issues in their life were the same as the issues I was having. So I still don't have much knowledge about drug abuse, but I do know that it takes you down the same path as alcohol.
But I always find it funny when alcoholics talk about like alcohol as if it's not like a drug, as if it's like somehow different. And it's, like my experience with alcohol, it was like I watched it take my dad, and it was like horrific. Like my drug of, he said drugs of choice, my drug of preference was heroin, and I was saying before, like with heroin, you kind of get like a good shelf life with heroin, like you can manage like to a degree, health wise, for years, and then you take things like ketamine and cocaine and stuff, and they have a different effect on the body. Do you know what I mean? And my other experience with alcohol is that was the one that always took me to. I'd go, when I first come into recovery, I'd have a bevy, and then I'd go on to like your drug of choice, which was like cocaine, and then from cocaine I'd go on to heroin, crack cocaine and stuff like that.
See, my health didn't really deteriorate on cocaine. Well, it wasn't a lasting deterioration, so I could use for a week solid, constantly battering cocaine, and a week after that I would be back to full health.
What about your mental health?
Oh, my mental health was probably in the gutter, but again, it was short-lived, because as soon as I started to feel better physically, mentally I'd be like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And I'd think it would be a good time again. So there was a point where when I was using, I wanted to die and kill myself, but then when I'd stop using, the few and far between times when I'd stop using, I'd think I don't really want to die, and I'd understand that it was when I was using that I'd want to die, which is probably one of the, like, thank God, the reasons that I came to recovery, because I didn't want to die. Do you know what I mean? But I also didn't want to stop taking drugs. So my recovery didn't start with a willingness to stop taking drugs. It started with a willingness not wanting to die. But I wanted to control it.
I think when you're going into recovery, what I did learn about it is what you said yourself before, is that you look at your preference of what drug it is, or what. For me, it was alcohol. For others, it was drugs. But even in that circle, there's still that judgmental of who's worse than who by what addiction you're in, what drug you're in. So whilst that's going on, which it does go on, because I did that the first time I went into recovery, is actually, well, they're worse than I am, like I say, come to the realisation, actually, they're the same as me. However, for me, it was a case of, you know, it was still a safe place. Irrespective of what you were addicted to.
In my active addiction, the people who was taking the same drug as I was taking used to say that I was a smackhead on coke because of the way that I used it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I couldn't have like just like a little bit and like socialise or anything like that. Well, I could for a certain period of time, but in the end, when my addiction progressed, you know, it was very much isolation and you know, when I was around people, they'd be like, you don't need anymore, and I'd be like, I can't feel it, and I'd be shoveling it in, and I'd be like.
And that's the thing about addiction, and lots of drugs what we take can be seen to be social. You know, especially like alcohol, ketamine, cocaine, but like the identifying it as a problem, and because what happened with me is, other people identified I had a problem way before I identified, you know what I mean? And it was like when I was using on like a Wednesday morning, you know, like, you know, and that become like the norm for me, because although I didn't necessarily think I wanted to die, I really struggled living without substances. But what I find is interesting is like it's like generational drugs, you know, like.
It is. I always say like now I'm in recovery and looking back, I was just a 21st century junkie, because Ket is quite similar to heroin from what I've heard, and I was sniffing a lot of cocaine, so it's just like heroin, crack cocaine, that's what people perceive to be a junkie. I was just like a 21st century junkie, because I was taking the same things to feel the same way as you, like the older generation did, but it's just different drugs.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's where I slipped into a thing when I first came into not recover. Well, yeah, it is recovery, I suppose, but it was a drug team I originally went to because I had a problem with heroin, and it scared me because I'd never been addicted to something where I needed it every day without being, you know, or I was going to be ill, and I thought then once I'd got off the heroin and stuff, oh, I can take anything as long as it's not that, you know, to get rid of the same feeling and the same mindset, because I was trying to deal with like stuff that had happened in my past but the wrong way because I didn't know any other way, and that was to bottle it up and push it down, you know, so I couldn't feel it and it didn't affect the way I didn't think it affected the way I was. So my drug use went from like heroin, crack cocaine, amphetamine, it was anything just to push that down in the end, and I could abstain from using it but I couldn't stop completely. And it was only when an issue that wasn't to do with drugs but like someone saying that I had and I needed to prove myself that ended up at like CGL, and I'd done intuitive recovery, so I thought I knew everything about addiction that I could, you know what I mean, but there's that many aspects to addiction and I didn't know that it was an illness, you know.
Can I ask a question though?
Yeah.
To anyone who's been addicted to drugs, for me it was a case of mine was alcohol, so it just depended on what brand or what flavour.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
But from what I was saying before about the judgmental side of it, but from an addiction point of view, was there a choice of drug that you wanted to take first, based on how you were judged?
Basically, what happened was I met my eldest daughter's dad, and he was a heroin addict, and I'd never had heroin, and when I first met him he was actually doing a rattle and I didn't know what it was, and he just said he had a cold at the time, and it only like transpired later that it was a heroin addict, and I ended up trying it, and it was like, yes, I've got something that takes it all away and I can function, you know what I mean, well, I thought I could function. So then I was like more and more, and then someone gave me a crack pipe and I was like, oh yeah, and then that just like took hundreds of pounds and it was crap in the end, you know what I mean? It was like more rocks I could get the better, and then after you just know, you're thinking what the fuck, then you need a bag of heroin to come down off that. So I thought, because I was out of that routine, that I wasn't really an addict with anything else, but I was, because I always replaced that with either, I've never been one for coke because it was too expensive and shit. I think I didn't get the same effect as I did off the others. So it was like cannabis with Valium, Temazepam, anything that would take this, you know, away.
So I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's our reaction to.
Yeah.
So, it was the same with
Because
alcohol.
I'd like.
So a sip of alcohol for me would set off that compulsion and that obsession. And in the end, it was anything.
Well, my mum used to
a
say
lot of
to
my
me,
relapses at the start was started by that. I'd
Yeah.
always
I
I
think
separated
alcohol was a
alcohol
gateway.
so much.
I couldn't drink without taking a drug.
Yeah, but then because I come to NA and I understood that I'm an addict and I suffer from the disease of addiction and I can't take drugs, my head twisted that then to, well, I can have a
Be alright
bevy.
with alcohol.
And I actually picked up a 6-month keyring, but I was drinking, but I was so convinced I was still clean
Yeah.
because I hadn't
I did
taken
it with
drugs.
the weed.
And a lot of my relapses started by that until in the end, when I relapsed, I'd just go straight back to Ket and I'd be on Ket, and then within a week I'm sniffing like 10 gram of Ket a day and I'm back in the physical state that I was in at the end of my last relapse, and it becomes so much quicker and quicker. And then when I first come to NA, I think I was only 19, 20, no 19, maybe 18.
My body doesn't know what I'm putting in it. It just knows that
Yeah,
it's changing the way that I
drugs.
feel. So I had a codeine the other week by an accident. I thought it was a paracetamol and I took a codeine. About 20 minutes later, my body went woohoo! And I was like, what the fuck is that? I'm off my fucking barnet. Do you know what I mean? But it was like 20 minutes later, I was like, don't fuck
Right,
with
we're gonna
shit.
have to wrap this up now because we've not got much time to go. But I just think it's really interesting conversation, and it's talking about like substances and identifying that the addiction is not the substance.
It's not now.
No.
Do you know what I mean? The addiction is within us.
Yeah.
And if people think this is an interesting topic, just let us know what you think in the comments and stuff like that.
I think if you, once you, I thought I was handling the problem by getting rid of the drugs, and it was only when I came into NA like a year ago nearly that I realised that we have the brain that makes us addicted to anything, whether it's like shopping or anything, you know, and that is a big thing for me because now I can see it. Do you know, and I know that it's going to happen, that if I don't do the stuff that I'm doing, I'm going to twist my own head off.
Right, so we've really got to finish now, but like just in finishing, I heard something the other week, Steve O off Jackass, I heard him, like he's in recovery there, and what he said was, he said, I suffered with the disease of addiction once I stopped taking drugs. He said once I was taking drugs, I was suffering with the consequences of addiction.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting
really
quote to finish
powerful.
with. Thanks for listening, and you can please like and share and subscribe and let us know what you think in the comments. Nice one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.